Good morning.
Good morning. Of course, my yard guy decides to come, so he's probably going to be interrupting.
It never fails.
Every other Tuesday, and it's every time that you're having your meeting, he's mowing my grass.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Right.
So we are recording.
Okay, we have that going. We will probably be doing these virtually at least through August, but we're so glad everybody's here to join us this morning. We'll get started at 8. Good morning, Cindy. Good to see you. If you'd like, and we'll say this after we start as well, you can put your information in the chat box for everyone to see who else is here and what your business is. Again, we will go over this once we start, but for those that are already here, if you want to do that, and we'll just ask that you don't be spammy in here either. But we're so glad to see everyone this morning, and people are still coming in. Everyone has their coffee. See you're here as well, Adam. Glad to have you. And Terry and Michelle, we still have quite a few coming in. It's nice to see such a good turnout in these virtual meetings. Hope everyone's been doing well.
I believe we are live on Facebook.
Great. And in just a few minutes, we will start. Good morning, Barbara. It's nice to see other people from the Institute here. Oh, Ashley Terrell, hello. Good to see you. We will be getting started shortly. If you want to post your business in the chat box, that would be great. Then everybody can see who's here. Good morning, Peyton. Okay, just a couple more minutes and then we will get started. Again, so glad to have so many of you online right now. Again, if you want, you can put your business in the chat box. I see many of you already are. It's nice to see such the diversity too in the different business types that we have here. Oh, hi, Gwen. Nice to have you on this call.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be here.
Oh, good. It's like, I recognize her.
Thank you. I'm excited about it.
Oh, good. Okay, looks like we have a lot of you that are already here. Looks like it is just about 8 o'clock. Every clock I have shows a different time. Anyway, good morning, everyone. My name is Tracy Irby, and I am the Associate Director at TWU, Center for Women Entrepreneurs. We're so happy to see so many of you here for our Rise Breakfast. This is our second virtual meeting, and we will probably continue virtually, maybe through August, but we'll keep all of you up to date on that. We want everyone, if you'd like, put your business in the chat box so everybody knows who else is here and what type of business that you have. We do just ask that you don't put it in too many times today, but we're so happy to see everybody here. Again, welcome. We do have several members of our center and our team on here. Shannon Mantero, our director, is online. Good morning, Shannon. Donna Lisa is our program coordinator. Jody Rodriguez should be in as well. I know many of you have met her at our in-person events. And Samantha Farmer our senior secretary, may even join us this morning as well. So again, welcome everyone. We're so glad that you're here. We'll go ahead and get started with our speaker. Today's speaker is Jeff Radighieri. He is an associate professor of marketing at Texas Women's University. He has experience in the financial services and industrial distribution industries in various marketing roles, including analyst, program administrator, and sales. He consults with small and medium-sized businesses in the areas of marketing strategy and digital marketing. He has published works in branding and marketing communication. So we're so happy to have you here this morning. Good morning, Jeffrey.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Well, I want to thank the Center for Women Entrepreneurs for this opportunity. I love giving talks like these and welcome, many of them. And so this is a topic that is very interesting to me. I've done some work with it, but it's also a topic that has that kind of, how should we say, creates some pretty strong opinions one way or the other, okay? So we're going to talk a little bit about what it is and, how you should use it. What are some things you should do? What are some things that you shouldn't do? And then hopefully that will give you guys some, some nuggets for you to maybe consider using email marketing if you haven't used it already. Okay. So I want to start off just kind of briefly just defining what email marketing is. I mean, we get emails all the time from companies, hopefully they're ones we've subscribed to, but maybe some that we haven't, okay? But, formally, it's just a marketing tactic we use to deliver messages to consumers, prospects, clients, maybe it's partners, things like that, okay? Actually, I forgot, I need to share my screen. So looks like I already have permission to do that. So let me go ahead and get that going. I did notice that some of you asked about
The PowerPoint.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I've got two screens here. And do you guys see the maximize version or the slideshow version, or do you see the notes version of the presentation?
I see it on the side as well.
Okay.
The PowerPoint.
All right, got it. Let me see what I can do here. This is not that big a deal.
Okay, well, while you do that, we're going to ask that everybody send their questions to Donalisa Stinyard. You can do that privately, and we will go over all the questions at the end. Her email is bstinyard at
No, just send it, Tracy, just send it
through
to
the
in
box.
the chat.
Okay.
In the chat box. In the chat box.
Just send it to the chat box.
Yeah.
It's easy enough.
Sorry.
Okay, so I think I have the slideshow version shared now, so you should see just the big slide and nothing on the sides. Is that correct?
Right.
Yes.
It looks
Okay,
great.
cool. All right, so some of you asked earlier about getting copies of the slides, and it sounds like they're going to share them. I would be happy to send you a copy if you need in a different version. Just know that I'm not slide heavy. I don't have a lot of definitions. I don't have any definitions on slides. It's just a bunch of pretty pictures for us to look at while we're talking here. Okay. So the first thing I want to show you is something we call basically the wheel of digital marketing. Okay. And so the goal of email marketing, as is the goal with social media marketing, blogging, YouTube videos, SEO, the goal of all of those is to drive people to your website, because your website is kind of the living, breathing organism, the kind of the brains of your organization. In the digital space, it's kind of where the rubber hits the road, so to speak. That's where they go to find more information. That's where they go to interact with you, maybe make a purchase or ask for a callback or some sort of communication. So no matter what we do digitally, you've got to keep in mind right off the bat that everything is about driving clients, consumers, whoever, to your website. And so email is a huge, huge portion of that. So as you see here, we've got all these different digital activities. And so email is just kind of a part to the whole. It's nice to say that organizations should be doing all of these things digitally, but it takes time, it takes manpower, it takes resources, it takes money. So if you can't do all these, that's totally fine, but email is probably one of the most important ones. So we'll talk about that as we go along here. This is what we call the digital marketing funnel. And so this is kind of another way to look at what we do from a digital standpoint. We're trying to first attract consumers. We want to get their attention, kind of draw them in. To convert basically means not necessarily making a purchase is the ultimate goal, but it could be just getting them to come to your website. That kind of moves them towards down the path towards a purchase. Okay, and once you've kind of converted them, then you want to kind of nurture the relationship, just remind them that you're here. And that's another place where email marketing plays a big role. And if you do all that right, the advocate part at the bottom is what customers do. They go out and tell other people how great you are, and how wonderful your services are, and how cool your digital marketing efforts are. Okay, and so email marketing plays a huge role in all of this. Okay. So I was going to ask some questions, but it's going to be hard in this forum. I was curious about who has actually used email marketing in their business up to this point. So hopefully some of you have, but it's totally understandable that you haven't. There's a lot of technical issues that go into it, and like everything else, it kind of takes time. Okay, but I do know for a fact that we all receive email communications from other companies. I'm sure you get a bunch. I get a bunch. There's some that I really look forward to seeing, and there's others that I'm like, ugh, why are they sending me another message? Yeah, I realize I subscribe to this, but come on, it's too much. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about striking a balance between frequency and effectiveness. So we'll get there. But what I want to do now is I want to take us back to, I guess over 20 years ago. Those of you that are old enough to remember the late 90s, you guys remember how email marketing was in those days? It was, again, if we were in class, I'd be asking for your opinions, but here we're not in class, so I'm just kind of hesitating. Anyways, it was very much the Wild West, right? Email was novel. I mean, email's been around since the late 1960s, believe it or not. But as a marketing tool, it didn't really become a thing until the mid-90s, once the World Wide Web was monetized and starting to be used by a majority of people. But yeah, email marketing was a Wild West. Basically, companies would find emails anywhere they could, and they would just blast everybody with their marketing messages. We're the best, shoe company, so come buy our shoes. And you're always like, well, where do they get my email address? I have no idea. And so it was a little bit sneaky. I wouldn't call it shady, but it was a different time. It was kind of rough. And we were bombarded a lot. Spam filters were not really as sophisticated as they are now. And so it was just a pain. And so it got a really bad reputation. It's just like, we didn't really know the term spam yet, but, it was, akin to all the junk mail you get in your mailbox at your house. And it was, a problem. I mean, small caveat to that is that email was novel at that point, and so we liked to get some things, but over a short period of time, we kind of got worn out with all the bombardment. So thankfully, 20 plus years later, we're in a much better place. Email marketing doesn't, at least for most people, doesn't have this same bad reputation, thankfully. Okay, it's become a lot more sophisticated. It's become a lot more relevant. It's become a lot more civil, I would say. It's not this Wild West anymore, and it has actually become, a really wonderful part of our marketing strategy, and consumers seem to be okay with it. Okay, let me switch gears and now talk about what email marketing is not. We talked a little bit about what it is, but what is it not? First of all, it's not cold calling. This is basically the way it was in the 90s. Again, they would get your email address from some random place, who knows where, and they would basically just do what we now call spamming. They would spam you. They would, try to reach out to you without your permission and cold call, okay? Email marketing is also not mass media. This is not a situation like advertising where you have one message and you have, multiple, many, maybe even thousands of receivers. It's supposed to be customized, supposed to be personalized to each individual, and technology that exists today makes that not only possible, but very easy. So just sending out some sort of random generic mass email is not considered a best practice. It is not a part of email marketing. Email marketing is not spam. Kind of goes up hand in hand with the other two we've talked about. It's also not a direct sales tool. Okay, so if we're talking about email in the context of email marketing, it is not a direct sales tool. Salespeople do use email in communication with prospects and with clients, but in the context of what we're talking about here, email marketing is not a direct sales tool and should never be treated as such, okay? And you may be wondering, well, what does that mean? What do we do with email marketing then? We'll get to that, okay? So some major benefits that companies of all sizes can accrue from email marketing. First one is, believe it or not, it helps you build relationships with consumers, okay? So the content you provide, if it's compelling, if it's of value, customers like to get the emails. And so over time, it allows for great relationships to be built. And I expect there are probably examples you guys could throw out of companies in which you have built a pretty significant relationship directly because of their email promotions, okay? I know a couple right off the bat that are that way for me. They both post, there's two of them I can think of, and they both post a lot of educational material. Sometimes there'll be a coupon or something, which I can't avoid. I'm a total sucker for them. But yeah, they've done a great job of providing me relevant content, things that resonate with me, and that's helped build a relationship. Okay, awareness building. So customers who receive your emails, if you are sending them, with any sort of regular frequency, they show up in consumers' email boxes over whatever the frequency is. And over time, that kind of sticks in your head and helps you remember that brand and remember what they're about. So it helps you build awareness. Once that awareness is built, email marketing also helps you hold that awareness. Okay, if you kind of got consumers to a certain level of awareness and then just quit doing this, then some would forget about you. So it's good for helping you kind of maintain the awareness levels that you've built. Okay. Another benefit of email marketing, if it's done correctly, it's very attention getting. So you get all these emails in the morning from a lot of different places, but one that's got a pretty clever subject line with some pretty pictures in it. If it's done right, is going to, attract attention. So big benefit. So those are all kind of top level things, okay? But then the next question is, well, what happens next? Email marketing also leads to conversions. And the slide is still on the screen where we talk about, the blue part there, the conversions. Email marketing gets people to your website if it's done correctly. Okay, they will click on some article, click on some link within your email, and it will take them to your website. And so that's great. Social media doesn't work as well doing that. It's great for awareness building, but it's rough on conversions. Okay. Email marketing is also used for lead generation. Okay, so if you build a permission marketing system where basically you're asking people for permission to send them emails, which is absolutely the best practice, those people who say yes and give you their email addresses, they become leads for you. Okay, and so especially in organizations where you have outside salespeople, this is really great because not only now do you have the ability to reach them with regular emails, but maybe you also send them snail mail. Maybe you also call them, on the phone. So that's really great. Once you've built up leads, email marketing also helps you do this purple step here, nurturing leads. Okay, so just because someone is signed up for your emails and now you have their email address doesn't necessarily mean they're going to run off to your website and buy something. So sending out regular emails with, relevant, compelling information of value, you are nurturing them, you're kind of moving them down towards some sort of, ultimate, action, which ideally would be some sort of purchase. Okay. Email marketing is very low cost. Okay. All it takes is time and an email manager subscription. And those subscriptions can be between $20 and $50 a month. Be more if you go with a highly sophisticated one, but I don't recommend that you should ever kind of start there. Okay. A couple more benefits here. The recipients of your email are engaged. They're an engaged audience. They gave you permission to market to them. So there was some reason that they did that. And so they're engaged with you to some degree. Okay. Another benefit of email marketing, it's very targeted. You can basically create multiple mailing lists and send them out to multiple groups. Maybe you've got, a flower shop, and you've got two major, lines of business. You've got flowers, and then you've got maybe, like balloons, maybe balloons. So this is probably a terrible example, but it just came off the top of my head. So you could have a flowers email list, and you could have a balloons email list. Okay. You can also, with these email marketing managers, you can actually insert their names, in the salutation, kind of like a mail merge. If you've ever done that in Microsoft Word and Microsoft Excel, you can do the same thing. So the message shows up, and it's got their name at the top, and so that is really great. Another benefit I've already mentioned is email marketing is pretty easy. Again, all it really takes is time and a little bit of resources, but it's easy to do for sure. Most of the managers, you type in some content, there's places you can drag and drop some pictures, and it'll give you some suggestions along the way. So it's really great. Okay. Another beautiful thing about email marketing, and as a marketing professor, this is probably the biggest benefit, and at least in my eyes, that email marketing is highly measurable. Okay. You can send an email out and know exactly who's opened it and who hasn't, what they've done with these emails. And so that's huge, because not only does it help you, figure out what works best, but it also helps you figure out what doesn't work. It also helps you figure out, is this email marketing campaign cost effective? And I know that we all are concerned about costs, especially in the rough economy that we're in right now. Okay. And then finally, the last benefit I want to mention of email marketing is it's very effective. It's probably obvious, since we have this whole seminar today on email marketing, that it must be effective. It's very effective. And you could Google, the value of email marketing, and you'll get a whole bunch of different, answers. But basically, what's pretty consistent is that they found, researchers have found that for every dollar spent on email marketing, you generate roughly $40 in return. Okay. So this is assuming that you follow best practices and things are done right. Okay. They've also found that email marketing is 40 times more effective than social media. So lots of small businesses I work with, for sure, they're so focused on social media and making sure that their tweets and their LinkedIn page and their Instagram pictures are perfect. But at the end of the day, the email marketing is much more effective. So if you have limited time, if you have limited resources, you'd probably be better served to prioritize email marketing over social media. Okay. All right. So that's a whole bunch of benefits, 10 or 12 there. There are also some significant drawbacks to email marketing. Okay. Even though we're in a really great place here with email marketing, it's not, considered, kind of an awful spammy thing anymore. Some people still do view email marketing as spam. Okay. So luckily, most of those people aren't going to sign up for your newsletter in the first place, or your emails in the first place. But there is still that prevailing view out there with some people, that it is still considered spam. Okay. Another drawback is the list that you build for an email marketing campaign. You're invariably going to have dead email addresses. They're going to be email addresses that don't get to that are dead, that they're no longer active, that their inboxes are full, and so it's going to limit the number of recipients who actually receive your message, and that can kind of distort things a little bit. So that's always a problem. And part of that is, kind of an aside, is a lot of people, when they say they want to download some sort of free content from a website, and they say, well, we'll give this to you, but you have to provide an email address. A lot of times people will put in a fake email address just to get the content, but they don't want to get marketed to. So that happens. Another drawback is email clutter. So how many emails do you have in your inbox the first thing in the morning when you wake up and first check your email? Probably a couple dozen. At least that's what I have, and most of them are things I've subscribed to. But still, they just any one email gets lost in the shuffle with all the other emails there. So that is a problem. Okay. And then the final drawback we've already mentioned is that a lot of times we will opt in to a particular email marketing campaign and then forget we've done so and then get frustrated with that. So kind of circles us back to saying, oh, I think they're spamming us, even though we kind of forgot that we actually opted in the first place. All right, quick swig of coffee. It's a little early this morning. Okay, so switching gears again. I don't have very good segues, so I just kind of move from one thing to the next. George Carlin, my favorite comedian, used to always talk about that. He would just kind of skip from one thing to another, and that's what I'm doing. But hopefully there's a logical order here. It's just terrible transitions. Okay, going back to what I talked about earlier about how much professors like to know that we can measure something. It is absolutely critical that you measure your email campaigns. I mean, you could do these on your own without an email manager, but you're not going to get the detailed analytics and statistics that can help you judge how well you're doing and figure out how you can do better. Okay, now I used a buzzword there, analytics. Don't get scared. People, the media and other places, the term analytics can mean all kinds of different things. Media tends to use it to mean like this, kind of upper level, highly statistical, fancy data mining stuff. But even like return on investment is actually considered an analytical technique. Okay, so you've got to have some what we call KPIs, key performance indicators, to help you monitor how you're doing in your emails. You always want to be trying to improve and do better. And so I want to talk about some of these ways you can, some metrics or analytics, simple analytics that we can use to track our progress. Okay, and the first KPI I want to mention is what's called open rate. So of all the messages that got into people's inboxes, what percentage actually got opened? Okay, this is important, right? Because if they don't open them, it's a total dead end, right? It's like a door-to-door salesman knocking on someone's door and no one ever answers. I mean, that's that's not good. Okay, so open rate is super important. It's kind of the first kind of baseline KPI that we talk about. Across all industries, a decent benchmark is 20%. So if you can get an open rate above 20%, you can consider that you're doing okay. Okay. Now you always want to get it as high as possible, but if it's below 20%, you need to rethink how you've designed the emails. Who's in the contact list and all of those things. Okay. All right. So open rate is the first step. The second step, and then another important KPI to talk about, is what we call click-through rate. Click-through rate, it's usually abbreviated CTR, very simple. It's just what percentage of the emails that were delivered did someone actually click on something in the email to take them to your website. Okay, so getting to this convert here, right? Or, even if we went back to the wheel, getting them to the website, okay? Kind of the standard industry, across all industries, benchmark for click-through rate is 2.5%. Okay? So that's not great, but it is what it is, okay? Coupon campaigns, their redemption rate is less than 1% typically. Direct mail has probably got some very small, success rate as well. So, but that's just the way it is. So the beauty of email marketing versus direct mail is, you're not paying for each, printing and postage for each one. So the variable cost per contact is basically nothing. So 2.5%, but it's not much. Okay. So kind of before we go any farther to talk about how to improve open rates and click-through rate is, first of all, we'll get back to this in a minute, but your email has got to be attention-getting. So the subject line has got to be something that draws people in, and that will help with your open rate. And then once the email is opened, getting people to click on something, you're gonna need clear writing. You're gonna need pretty pictures, some sort of offer or something like that. Okay. Another KPI is just, we've already mentioned this, is simply just conversions, and we can define this however we want. It could be click-through rate, it could be open rate, but it could also be, if you have an e-commerce site, it could be things like purchases. So the number of purchases divided by the number of emails that were successfully delivered could be considered a conversion. So it can be, a really good KPI. The problem with that is if you've got an open rate of 20% and a click-through rate of 2.5%, then not all those who click on your email to go to your website are going to purchase anything. So your purchase rate is going to be very, very low. So you might be like, well, my goodness, I'm getting 0.0005% purchases off of my email list. That's not very great. So it may not be the best way to kind of look at those numbers. You may want to put some dollar figures on the orders, things like that. Okay. Another KPI that's very simple is just what's called deliverability. So what percentage of the emails on your list actually are still good, meaning what percentage of the emails in your list, email addresses in your list, did the email actually get through to their inbox? Okay. So old emails, dead emails, things like that, greatly reduce that deliverability, and you want to kind of clean that up as you go along. Okay. Unsubscribes. This is another metric that we use. Another KPI is these email marketing manager programs. They will tell you how many people have unsubscribed, and so you want to keep an eye on that and try to, if the number is high, try to figure out why. Is the content not relevant, or is, we're sending two emails? So, if you get a kind of a spike in unsubscribe, you'll need to figure out what happened. Okay. And then finally, the last KPI I want to talk about is just return on investment. If you can track what it costs you to do email marketing, and you can track, email marketing efforts to purchases, and you can put, some sort of, average order size or average, gross profit per order. You can calculate ROI, so you can put dollar figures to your email campaign. Okay, I don't know how big your businesses are, but I worked in a business one time where we had about 100 employees, and there was a VP of marketing, and I worked for him, and we had one other person in our so-called marketing department. And anytime we wanted to do any sort of marketing campaign, we didn't have a static budget. We had to go to the CEO and basically beg for money, which is not ideal, but it's very common, and that's just the way it is. And so if you can roll into the CEO's office or the finance person's office, whoever writes the checks, and say, hey, look, our last email campaign, our ROI was 27%. We want to do another one, so give us some money. Without, maybe you ask a little more nicely than that, but. So we always had to argue for, in dollar terms for money for our initiatives, and, quite generally, just kind of speaking, given the industry experience I have, is a lot of companies, they're not necessarily really on board with marketing. Finance people, accounting people, sometimes they're like, I don't really know what you guys do. And so, You have to always be providing some sort of support to those people for what you do. And so it's important that any marketing activity that you do, that you're able to set up ROI and maybe some other metrics, okay? All right, so doing email marketing, kind of some formalized steps to go through. And again, I don't have any slides for these. Again, I'm sorry, I don't do a lot of slides. So there's 7 or 8 steps here that I like to lead clients through in terms of email marketing. Okay, and step 1 is devise a strategy. And a strategy is just kind of an overarching idea of what you want to do. Okay, so with email marketing, it could be increase awareness, it could be grow revenues, it could be just build our list. So very, very generic, kind of top level kind of things we would like to have happen. Okay, once you've kind of developed that strategy, then you create some specific goals that will hopefully, if achieved, will satisfy or be consistent with that strategy. So things like we want to have X number of people on our mailing list by this date, or we want to get our open rate up to 25%, or we want to get our conversions up to 5%. You know, you provide some numerical goals that you can measure, that have some sort of specific deadline, so you can take a step back at that point and say, okay, are we on track? Are we doing what we said we wanted to do? Okay, so you develop some strategy, you develop some goals, then you assign KPIs. We just talked about those. You know, oftentimes the KPI is the goal. Okay, and then you build your email list. Okay, and so the question is, well, how do you build an email list? You know, you can't just go on the internet and extract a bunch of emails and send them out. That's definitely spam. There's a couple of ways you can do it. Okay, the easy way is just what's called opt-in. Basically, I'm sorry, I'm getting out of order with my slides here. The first thing you can do is what we call provide a lead magnet. So basically, provide some incentive for consumers to give you their email address. Okay, this is very common. This is part of what we call content marketing. Okay, so lead magnets, examples are things like an ebook, a white paper, some sort of simple how-to. If we're talking about our florist, you know, maybe a how-to document on how to, care for orchids, which if you've ever owned an orchid, I have no idea how you care for them. You look at them funny and they die. So, but maybe that's just me. I don't know. Some sort of webinar you're going to put on, maybe you're going to provide them some sort of free sample, some sort of self-assessment of whatever it is. Maybe it's, maybe you're a window company. Maybe you provide some document to allow consumers to do a self-assessment of the condition of their windows. Okay, something of value, and they may say, okay, I'll give you my email address for that. Maybe it's a coupon. Quite simple. All right. I forgot to reference this slide, so I apologize. So taking a step back for just a moment. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but just know that ROI is much more effective for email than it is for any other of these marketing campaigns. So sorry about that. Okay. So here's an example. I mean, this is going to be from a digital company. This is an example of a lead magnet. Okay. And so this is about, for bloggers, a cheat sheet for writing the most effective blog posts. Say you click on that orange button, click here for free instant access. They're going to ask you for your email address in exchange for that. And it's probably going to then send you to your email where you confirm that you want this, and then you can download it straight from your email. Okay. So with a lead magnet, the idea here is you have to provide them something of value to allow them to be willing to give up their email address. We're very concerned about spam. We're very concerned about security and privacy. And so we've got to do something to get consumers to be willing to just give up a little bit of that privacy and give us their email. Okay. You got to give to get, basically. Marketing, we talk about you got to spend money to make money, but in this context, you got to give a little to get a little. Okay. So that's a lead magnet. The other type is just simply called an opt-in. So basically, you're just asking for their email address in exchange for joining your email campaign. Okay, so we're not providing them anything of value in addition to the email marketing access itself. So that's called an opt-in. Okay, permission marketing. Lead magnets, opt-in are both what we call permission marketing. Okay, all right. Once you've done that, then you create your email campaign. You figure out what you're going to do. Then you what we call deploy your email marketing tactic. You use one of these email marketing manager applications. Some examples are Constant Contact. There's one called MailChimp. There's one called Drip. There's a bunch of others. You just basically Google email marketing manager and you'll find probably 24 on the first page. Okay. Then once you've sent out your emails, then what you want to do is just basically monitor. Check and see how things are doing. This is a dashboard in Constant Contact. This is the application I'm familiar with. And so you can click on any email campaign and it gives you a lot of information. So 470 were sent, 112 are open. That's an open rate of 25.6%. 5 of the 112 got clicked on, which 4.5% click-through rate, which is, I guess, good. Looks like a tiny number, but it's actually not too bad. Bounces is a number of bad email addresses. 1 person reported us as spam. 7 people unsubscribed. 326 did not open. Okay, so gives us really good information to help us, improve going forward. And so, you take a look at this and compare it to previous email campaigns, if there are any, and then you repeat. For your next campaign, you do things a little bit differently, try to improve upon that, and there you go. All right, so finally, I want to talk through some good practices or best practices in email marketing and some not so good practices in email marketing campaign. And I'll whip through these pretty quickly. I know I'm short on time here. Do I have 5 minutes maybe, Tracy? You can just nod. Okay, perfect, good, all right. Okay, so best practices with email marketing. The first one, this is probably the most important, is email marketing works best if you engage or have as a goal what we call thought leadership, okay? So instead of hard selling, trying to, hey, come to our email and buy our product, you want to demonstrate that you know what you're talking about, that you're the foremost expert in whatever it is, whether it's a floral shop or a roofing company or, a massage therapist. Just give people information so they know that you're highly educated on the topic. It's not going to necessarily lead them to make a purchase today, but over time, they're going to remember that, okay? Second practice is make sure that you segment your marketing list. And we talked about this already, but basically, don't send one email to everybody. If you have different products or different geographic clusters, maybe send them, their own version, okay? Starting out, very small, you don't have to do this, but over time, it's probably going to get larger and more sophisticated, and you want to do that, okay? Personalize the email. So make sure that you use a manager that will allow you to put the customer's name in the email. This helps avoid the spam folder. Spam filters do not like these generic emails, and they will snag them, okay? So basically, you want to act like you're writing to one particular person, okay? Like each email you individually wrote, okay? This is also important. You need a very catchy subject line without being too crazy, okay? You need to somehow draw the reader in, and a catchy email address does that, okay? We subscribe to Domino's, their email marketing, and their subject lines are really good, and so they seem to always show up at like 4:55 p.m. every day. And so they kind of suck us into buying pizza. So, but all it has to do with that catchy subject line, okay? If they're catchy, not only do they, resonate with consumers, but they also stand out from the other messages, okay? Little facts here on this: 47% of email recipients decide to open your email based on the subject line. And then, the decision to click spam, also has to do with the subject line, okay? Along those lines, these email marketing managers allow you to do what's called A/B testing. So basically, you can create 2 different versions of your subject line, and it will send out, they will randomize and send out both versions to consumers. The consumers will get either A or B to the first 20% of your list. And then it will kind of analyze which one has a better open rate, and then it will send out whichever one has the higher open rate for the rest of the list kind of in a short period of time later. So it allows you to create different subject lines, and the system will automate, making sure that the best subject line goes out to most people. Okay, try different colors, different styles, different templates, fonts. Pretty pictures are good. White space is really good. We get really wordy in our communications, and that doesn't work. You need to be very simple, very concise, to the point. Frequency, there's a million different opinions on frequency. There's some studies have been done that show that open rates and click-through rates and purchase rates are highest for companies who send a email every single day. But that's just crazy. I mean, we don't have the time to do that. Once you get to a certain size, maybe, but at least starting out, maybe once a week is a good start. Maybe even less than that. Just you've got to kind of manage expectations and manage your resources. Okay. Another best practice is have goals. We talked about that, but I can't emphasize that enough. Give yourself targets to shoot for and be able to measure and constantly look at that to see if you're going to hit that target. Okay. Have a CTA. This is what we call a call to action. Basically, ask them somehow to go to your website. And it can be easy as having in the email, having a little snippet of an article. And at the bottom, it says, click here. That is a call to action. You need to somehow, ask them to click on something to go to your website. It's just kind of like the whole always be closing and kind of old school, sales techniques is ask people to take some sort of action. Another best practice is be authentic, okay? This is not about, selling. I mean, it is, I guess, ultimately, but it's about storytelling. It's about being yourself, okay? So if there are funny, quirky things that are maybe related to your business, you want to talk about, do that. Why not, okay? Consumers want to see that companies are human. So kind of that should be reflected in your email marketing, okay? Provide something of value. You've already mentioned this. If you do a white paper or an ebook or you do some blogging, it's important that you just pull back the curtains a little bit. Some people that I've worked with say, well, I don't want to give them too much information because then there's no reason for them to need us. And that really isn't true. Even if you talk about your entire process for replacing windows or floral arrangements, it's still going to demonstrate that you are an expert, and it's still going to probably drive them either to come visit you or maybe tell other people about how knowledgeable you are, which, word of mouth is huge these days, okay? Final best practice is make sure that you, if you do email marketing, that's kind of the messages that you send out are consistent with everything you do in other marketing activities, social media, direct mail, personal selling. You want to make sure they all kind of support one another instead of being independent kind of activities. So, it's important in planning email marketing that you draw in people that are doing other marketing for you to make sure that everything is consistent. Okay. All right. Quickly, bad things to do in email marketing. These are very bad. Okay. The first one is purchasing a lead list. Anyone calls you and says, hey, I got this great lead list for you. I got 10,000 emails for you. Run. Hang up the phone. Don't even worry about being polite. Just run, because they don't work. You don't know where the leads have come from. You don't know if they're being verified, and they definitely haven't given you permission to market to them. So don't do it. That's old school. That is not how it's done anymore. Okay. So just avoid that, please. Second bad practice is do not send emails to recipients without their permission. Okay. it's in poor form, and actually it violates some laws. There's this law called can spam now. It's, I think US and Canada together kind of jointly put this together, but basically says that you are required by law to get permission before you email. It's hard to get caught, but it still is, you know, poor form, but it's also, there's also some legal ramifications. Poor writing, you know, make sure that there's no grammatical problems, that everything kind of makes sense and reads well. Find someone to copy edit if you need to. Too much text. Too much text, I've already mentioned this. You know, white space is good. Don't have so many words. Have a lot of pictures. You want to have graphics in there for sure. You don't want to sell too much. Again, it's just more about educating and you know, engaging people. And then obviously, finally, don't be deceptive. Okay, don't, you know, have, you know, a snippet of an article that's people might find valuable, but when they click on it, it takes them to some sort of, you know, sales tactic or something else, because that gets found out. Consumers are very savvy these days. We all are. We don't like being marketed to, and so anything we do that's deceptive or considered below board is going to be found out, and it's going to bite you in the backside really bad. So that's all I have. So I went over my time a little bit, but hopefully this was okay. So I think we're ready to take questions now.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. That was really great information. And I am surprised too. I guess I didn't know the number of or percentage of how effective that email marketing still is.
Yeah. Well, you know, the idea of getting permission, you know, in order to use it is those who show up on your list already are interested a little bit, as opposed to cold calling where a large percentage aren't interested. So
I understand. Donna Lisa has some questions for you.
Okay, Jeff, so the first one, we'll go ahead and get to it, was from Lisa. She wanted to know if you could restate the 8 steps of email marketing really quick. Somehow,
sure.
I think she missed 1 or 2, so.
Sure. I'll just do this. Can you read that? Okay. I'm kidding. Okay. Create a strategy is number 1. Create goals that are linked to the strategy. That's 2. Decide on KPIs to measure your goals. That's 3. 4th, build your email list. 5 is create your campaign. You know, where you physically write the email and what you're going to have in it and what it's going to do. 6 is what I call deploy, but basically send it out using some sort of email marketing manager. I recommend Constant Contact, but they're all really good. And then the next step is to measure and monitor. And then finally is repeat. You know, just once you've measured and monitored and you have a good handle on how successful it is, then you probably want to update and modify things and then start over.
Okay, great.
Great. Can you get us that list and we can send it out with the...
Sure.
That'll be perfect.
It should be in the replay, so.
Okay.
As well.
Yeah, but it's probably good to see it in text form too, so I'll send it.
Thank you.
So we do have a couple of other questions. You kind of answered them, but you know, we had a couple people. I know one, she's the marketing manager for a medical professional, and prior to Corona, they weren't emailing very much, and then now the doctor's wanting them to do a lot of check-ins and stuff, and she's very conflicted about how many times you should email. That was from Deanna, and Jennifer also asked about the emails, and I know you addressed it a little bit in your presentation, but what would you say, like maybe somebody just starting out or you know, really trying to put that email strategy together? Yeah. You know, how many times should you be emailing?
You know, just kind of start simple. I mean, slow is totally fine. I would say 1 a week. You know, just do 1 a week and do that for 3 or 4 weeks and see how it does. And if you're getting a lot of, you know, good signups and your open rate and click-through rate are really good, then start to increase as you deem necessary. And you know, like I said, research says the more frequent you are, the better your open rate and click-through rate are. But I think at some point it's just too much. So start with one and just see how it goes. And then, also the content itself will kind of drive, your frequency, because, as you are submitting out one email, you got to be thinking about the next one. And hopefully if you're getting a bunch of really good ideas, then it may dictate, more than one a week, but I've repeated it now a couple of times, but I would start with one a week, just see how it goes.
So when you're emailing them like once a week, and so they're getting like 3 or 4 emails from you, like say per month. So what would you say the balance of like actually, asking them to purchase something versus, providing them some content where you're showing yourself as a subject matter expert, say like the florist, selling flowers versus.
I would say that the bulk of it should be kind of this expert or this thought leadership. Asking for purchases should probably be done through things like, coupons, or, hey, Mother's Day is coming up, don't forget your mom. Kind of indirect calls to action that I think would work. But yeah, it needs to be primarily this thought leadership, letting people know what's going on.
So what do you say, like right now with kind of, the coronavirus and, business, the landscape of business has completely changed and people are out of work and, you know what I mean? And so some people may feel weird emailing their subscribers can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So there's one client I'm working with, and we haven't done a whole lot of email, but we've done a lot of social media, and it was tough to kind of figure out, okay, so we've got this pandemic going on, is how important are we right now in the grand scheme of things? And so, we kind of backed off for a while, but now we're back on it, because at the end of the day, we've got to move on, and, this company has done a good job of keeping all their employees on salary. And so I think the big problem comes is when companies get too, I don't know the right term, but there's lots of companies that sent out lots of emails about, hey, we're here for you. This pandemic is awful, but we're here for you. At some point, everyone was like, I'm tired of hearing that. So, I think now we're at a point where it just kind of go back to just normal, hey, we got flowers, or hey, Memorial Day is coming up, order your Memorial Day wreath or something like that. So, it was a delicate time, but I think even though the pandemic is still a major, major, major problem, I think we're, realizing that, we've got to carefully get back to work. So I think it's probably okay to get back to commence with your email campaigns.
Okay. We just had one, Gwen just typed in. She wanted to know if it was okay to reference another article in an email that you were sending out that was written by another expert on the subject.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Companies do it all the time. It's me as an academic, I sometimes will recommend clients to, cite this, hey, look at this research that was done in your particular area. So yeah, as long as that outside research doesn't conflict with what you're doing, yeah, just be very careful. And actually, an issue that came up recently is I had put together something for a company, and a university had come up with some new best practice in this particular area, and I was like, hey, we need to publicize this. And one of the salespeople dug deeper, and actually, if you dig deep into this organization, it actually counteracts the mission of the client. And so they were like, no, you got to be careful. So as long as you thoroughly read through it and make sure that it's a reputable source, that it's not come from some crazy third-party blog that is just kind of wheels off. If it's reputable and properly vetted, I think it's absolutely fine.
Okay.
It kind of shows that you're paying attention, that you're reading what's going on in the world, outside your company, even though it's some way related to your company.
So we have another question from, and I'm so sorry, I think it's Obia, O-B-I-A. So she was wanting to know what you thought about the more sophisticated email marketing companies like Klaviyo, C-L-A-Y-V-I-O, for companies that sell products. I guess she was more looking at it in terms of like analytics. Are they necessary for analytics, or is constant contact sufficient?
I think constant contact is sufficient. I mean, multinational corporations probably use those fancier, more sophisticated ones. But I think for small and medium-sized businesses, constant contact is absolutely appropriate.
Yeah, I think especially when you're first starting out, a lot of those platforms like Constant Contact and MailChimp, they offer, for free up to X amount of subscribers.
Right.
And I think they provide everything that you need to be able to do to connect email-wise with your subscribers without having to pay very much or having to pay anything at all.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I would strongly recommend a free trial like that just to see how it works. And there's a strong chance it's going to go well, and they're going to suck you into buying a premium version, but
Right.
for good reason.
And I believe Tracy had a question as well.
Okay, well, you gave us several resources. So what if you want to have a good opt-out for people? Because I know I've signed up for some list, and the first day I get 4, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want this many emails. So I've seen some where they just give you the option of unsubscribing from everything, and then others that give you choices. So are the software you recommend, do they have that in there, or is there different software for opting out?
No, they do. Yeah. If you ever get an email from Constant Contact, you'll see at the bottom that there's an unsubscribe. If you click on that, it'll go in there. And if you've got multiple newsletters, it'll ask which ones that you want to subscribe from. So yeah, it's pretty well embedded in there. So pretty easy to do.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I've got one more from Jennifer, and you spoke to it a little bit in your presentation, and she was talking about how can she encourage more people with her call to action. I think, sometimes we expect a lot of people to do what we ask them to do, but how can you engage them more, or is it just kind of doing some perseverance early on?
Definitely going to be perseverance. I mean, the progress is probably going to be a little bit slow at the beginning, but over time you'll kind of create a critical mass, and it will definitely snowball. But yeah, I mean, your call to action's got to be compelling in some way. Just again, it's got to provide something of value to get consumers to your website. Okay. And like I said before, I really like the self-assessment, the how-to, things like that. They just pull back the curtains a little bit and give people, the ability to try to do things themselves, and it may not work, and they're going to call you and say, hey, can you come help? But I mean, I would probably have to talk with her more, one-on-one about what her business is, and think through, what specific calls to action might work.
Okay. That's all I have, Tracy. Did you have any more?
That's all the questions now. We're going to stay, we want to wrap up here, but if you want to stay on a little, if anybody has questions or whatever after, if we want to chat for a minute. We do have a few things that are coming up, so we want you to save the date. On May 19th, next Tuesday, from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m., we're going to have Create a Recurring Income Business with Heather Steele from Blue Steel Solutions and the Problem Solver Method. And then our next Women Rise is going to be Tuesday, June 9th, again from 8 to 9 a.m. It's going to be Writing Winning Grants, Question and Answers with Diane Paskey James. She is a professional grant writer and has been doing it for over 35 years. So we'd love to invite all of you to our upcoming events as well. It was so great to have everyone. Jeff, great job. We sure appreciate that. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for attending.
Yeah, Tracy, the 19th, for people that may be a little confused, that's all about like doing subscriptions, online subscriptions. So if you've got an online business or
Right.
you know, want to provide some kind of service, it'll be a really great opportunity for people to learn more about that.
Oh, great. So that's, so many are doing that now. It's a great thing to know. Very good. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you guys. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You bet.
Enjoyed it.
Great job. Unmute. Thank you, everyone. Cindy, good to see you. Gwen, all of you. Thank you so much. It's nice to see. Thank you, Nidria. Good to see you. Lisa, can you unmute everyone?
Hey, I was wondering, are we posting our contacts in chat? That was in the email, so I was just wondering.
You won't.
Yes, yes, you can
We have the
put that
patient
in the
listed as
chat.
Medicare.
Great, thank you.
They don't cover when they pulled up Boyd. They're in the Sherman area, and they thought Boyd was over by.
Okay, does anybody have anything else? We're so thankful for everyone who is here today. Thank you for attending. And again, Jeff, that was great info.
Yeah, good. Glad to be here.
Thanks, Lisa. Good to see you or have you here.
I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording too,
Yeah.
Tracy. I've stopped the
Yeah.